All right, peace and much love. Zin Uru here. Welcome to the latest message from the Minista. This week's message is the breath of life. The breath of life. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. You know, wherever we are, wherever you are watching this, you know, we are all here in this same space together in spirit. And so being here one in spirit, we're also here one in breath. Now they'll call it oxygen, but really it's consciousness. And really it's God that is being breathed into us and out of us. This is the animating spirit that we are. And even if you're seeing this far into the so-called future, and Zin Uru has transcended his physical body, our breath is even more at one with one another than if you were in this room in the physical body with me right here in this time, in this space. You know, as kids, they had, when I was growing up, I was like the first generation of like Star Wars, right? And they got us good, you know. I was going to church and playing with Star Wars action figures. And that was it. That was my whole world. Like I didn't really notice the difference between the two, right? And it was interesting because I remember being really young, you know, 8, 9 years old. And, you know, after Obi-Wan Kenobi is struck down by Darth Vader, he says to Darth Vader, he says, "You can strike me down now, but if you strike me down, I'll be more powerful than you can ever imagine." And then later on, as the movie progressed and as Luke Skywalker, you know, who's been trained by Obi-Wan Kenobi, is flying in to destroy the Death Star, he hears the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi in his head. "Luke, use the Force, Luke. Let it guide your actions." And earlier in the movie, while Luke was learning about the Force, it was stilling his mind. It was calming his mind. It was in the breath. I would learn later on in life that that is the way, you know, that George Lucas was inspired by, you know, what would be called Eastern philosophies, Zen Buddhism, the Tao Te Ching, and the power of mind, and even the samurai, you know, is much more akin to a Jedi knight than a European medieval knight. So as a little kid, this idea of breath was just like kind of instilled into me. You know, and that was just the experience that I had. And the idea that there is this mind and this breath that we share, there is this force, they called it in the movie. And I'm also going to church learning about the Christ and learning about Jesus Christ, which I would later understand as the Christ itself, as the Spirit that Jesus is and was, but the Christ that is this eternal Spirit, this forever living Spirit, right? And then learning that as I got older, like, wow, you know, we're just using different terminology for certain experiences. And so tonight when we talk about the breath of life, we want to talk about the experience itself, like the experience of breathing in the breath of life and what that actually means. Or to a certain degree, add more knowledge on top and more definition into what that actually means for us. Give us a deeper examination of what that breath is and what this breath is. You know, in the Holy Bible, when God created Adam, when God created man, God breathed the breath of life into man, and man became animated into the mud. How often do we really think about this thing that we're just doing naturally? Just this in and out breath. Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. And there's all kind of breathing techniques out in the world, and there's all kind of like great breathing techniques. I practice certain breathing techniques often. I have for many, many years. And I've learned much from it. And we'll get into that and talk about that a little bit tonight. But really tonight, what we're talking about is we're noticing the supreme God force power of the breath. That we don't even think about breathing with our mind. We just breathe. Yeah, we can think about breathing with our mind, but when we're not, like when we're asleep, we're just breathing away. And when we're asleep, we're breathing more naturally and more closely to how we should be breathing when we're awake. Not the same, but similar. Like babies, like a baby, you just watch a baby breathe, especially a baby who's not in a stressful environment. And you just watch the stomach fill up, hold it there, and just let it out, and it all goes out and it's just held. And you watch a child breathe, and as we get older, as we get developed, depending on our environment, a lot of people growing up in cities, the environment is a stressful environment. The honking of the horn, the cars, the driving, the angry people, the beeps, the heart, just all of the sounds, the phone ringing, loud music, whatever it is. And I like loud music, But as a kid, we have these things. A doctor I had as a kid called them, they were, what do you call them? He said they were stress moments. They were moments of stress, of extreme stress. He called them extreme stress moments, where throughout the day that we get hit with just these moments that kind of jar us away from whatever it is that we're concentrating on. And we're in that alpha state where we're kind of in a meditative state, almost daydreaming, thinking. But we're in a state where, if we're doing that while we're driving and somebody pulls in front of us, and we stop the brakes, we most of the time, most people tighten up, hold the breath real quick, and it's a natural response. And then honk the horn or whatever, the situation passes, no harm is done. But that moment was interrupted. That moment of free thought, that moment of spirit was interrupted, and the breath got tense and the body got tense, and it held that breath in real quick, and then, some people don't know how to release that. That's what I would suggest you learn a way to release that. Like if I feel tension, because I've worked with, yoga or Tai Chi and energy work over the years, when I get that tension, I'm able to breathe out. So I don't hold that tension into my bones and the blood. And, you don't want that, because as we get older, we hold that tension, we hold that breath deep and that moment deep and that stress deep in, and it gets trapped in the bones and the blood and the mud, the mud of the body. But anyway, so we have, the doctors tell me, like, we have these moments throughout our life, and that, this was back in the 80s, he's telling me this. I was, 12 years old, 13 maybe. He was telling me, like, hey, we have these moments, but your generation has more of these moments than mine when I was a kid growing up in the 40s and the 50s. I thought that was fascinating, so I started paying attention to that throughout the day. The bell ring, you're going down the hall and somebody comes back and smacks somebody's head, and they get their head smacked, and they're like, what the hell, books drop, whatever it is. There's just these jarring moments in life, and, it's life. What are we going to do about it? That's just what happens, right? Tornadoes, tsunamis, earthquakes, volcanoes, all that happens, right? But our breath in all of that is so important. Because our breath is like the center of our health. It's like, can you go longer without water or without breathing? We look at the body, and like water, like you can only go a certain amount of time without food, but like you have to have water. We have to have water. And breath, though, how long can somebody hold their breath before they lose consciousness? Therefore, what is it that's entering into us? It must be consciousness. It must be awareness. Because when we lose our breath, we lose our awareness, we lose our consciousness. And when the body is completely lifeless and void of breath, it's called death. Breath, death, breath, the F at the end of that. That's the ether, see? The spirit. So we go through life. And we go out and about, and we have these ideas and these thoughts, and we get excited, and everybody's breathing. So, and then, the last 2 years, with a mask trying to talk like this, and it's been nuts with the breath, and I can't breathe. Like just that alone as a mantra being said over and over and over again. Like we got to be careful with our sayings, like to say something, and I get the political view of I can't breathe, but also we should look at the metaphysical meaning of saying something like I can't breathe over and over again and seeing it, especially while a culture or a society is masked up. There's no judgment here. I'm just saying this is what it is. This is physics of life, This is physics of life, and our breath is so important, because without our breath, we don't experience life. End of story. So how important is our breath? Well, it's the breath of life, literally. We wouldn't be here without the breath of life. And where does our breath go? When we leave this body, we enter this body, inhale. We leave this body, exhale. And where does that breath go? Back into where? What is that? Where does it come from? Because it's actually coming from inside too. In Tai Chi Chuan, they teach, that the Dan Diem, the palace of incorruptible breath, is right down here, 2 inches below the navel and 2 inches in. And you got this space. We all have this space within our belly of incorruptible breath. And so when we breathe deep, we're hitting this place of purified breath that's coming from inside, not the outside. It's not that the outside breath comes down and is purified. That's part of it. Well, within there, like you see the yin and the yang, you see the little seed within the bigger circle. I'll put that up there, like the eye, what people call the eye, that little seed. That is the palace of uncorruptible breath, like in the darkness of the belly, the darkness of the belly going down, the breath. And then there's this little space of light in there, okay? And that breath goes in, and then it's charged with the incorruptible breath of spirit. And so therefore the breath doesn't just come from outside of us, it also comes from within us. And notice how when we breathe in the heart, like right here in our lungs, right what they call the Heart Chakra center, the heart center, when we breathe in, it's acting like a pump. It's like a pump, like an accordion or a pump. So this is like, and it's pumping air into our lungs, and it's also pumping air up into our brain. And so often, what happens when we go out in our day-to-day and we tense up, we actually tense up in the neck here, and we don't just cut off blood, which is oxygen to our brain, we actually cut off the oxygen too. There's oxygen and blood tubes that come up through our neck. And so when that's tense, it tenses and it lowers the oxygen in the blood going up to the neck. Therefore, the brain doesn't even have enough oxygen, which is consciousness, which is the breath of life, which is God. The brain doesn't even have enough God to function correctly. And it's easier without the breath of God to function as an automaton, just a automatic beating, like a robotic beating, doing robotic work and just doing the robotic things, right? But this experience, what we have here in this life, is the very existence and experience of God and creation. And so this breath is the most important aspect of that creation, because without it, we're not here in this experience. Whether you're having a good experience or a bad experience, even people with the worst experiences ain't always that ready to leave this breath behind and die, so-called death. Banga. So if we're tense and we're stopping our breathing and stopping our breath, we're stopping God. We're not experiencing God when we're not experiencing the breath. And there's all kind of breathing techniques, and there's all kind of ways to do it. And just the natural way to do it, there's just nature in the way that we actually naturally breathe. When we're relaxed, when we're at peace, when we're calm, when there's... And even when we're excited and we're moving and we're energetic, and we've got the energy flowing, we're playing football or something, or we're dancing, or we're moving around and moving the body, or working out, or whatever that is. Like, the body's pumping and you just get more air and more oxygen. They say it's air and oxygen, but you're getting more God, you're getting more spirit, you're getting more soul. And I mean, I'm only saying this because this is what we know this to be true. But using the words like air and breath and spirit and soul, those are the words that are in the American Heritage Dictionary, 3rd edition, that we'll be reading from. And also the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, too. We're going to read from Spirit and Soul tonight as well. And we're going to read from a Native American creation story that's very close to the account of the biblical creation story. Very interesting. And we'll talk about hip-hop and how hip-hop relates to all this, because we're talking about a deep subject here that everybody experiences, but I want to bring hip-hop into it because hip is the in-breath, hop, O is the out-breath. Hop, hip-hop, 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 hip-hop. You see that? That's the in-breath and the out-breath. And we say, I have hip-hop. Well, that is God is hip-hop in that space. God as hip-hop in the in and out breath. The intelligent movement. So we start seeing that while we are breathing in our hip, we're getting intelligence of God breathing in. And remember, it's coming from within too, because the breath, the tandiem, the palace of incorruptible breath, is the inner breath, mixing with the outer breath and bringing the inner breath back out to life. So we hip in and then we hop out, and we're moving with that outer breath. We're moving with, we have that knowing. We find the inner knowing, then we express it on the out. And I do, for those advanced followers who have been tuning in the message from the Minista, who are starting to see, the physics of this, please keep in mind while we're talking that the breath is moisture. It's water. When we're breathing in moisture. When we're breathing out moisture. The water codes, the water is coded. Okay? So we're breathing in moisture and water, and they call it air. And it's air too, but it's all together as one. And we're breathing it out. What we call oxygen is just a different form of water. Remember, a fish doesn't know it's swimming in water. It's like how we move around in air is how fish moves around in water. They're just moving through this substance just like we are. And it's very similar. You start noticing like our whole body's made of water, right? And you could just see the fluidity and just kind of feel it for yourself. You can kind of move your hands around just lightly and just feel it for yourself what that is. So in our intelligent movement, in our hip and our hop, we have H2O, which is water, hydrogen, iodine, phosphorus, hydrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen, H2, 2 hydrogen, O, water, right? So we've got this intelligent movement riding water. That's us. We're the breath of life in this water body. What's the breath actually filling up but a bunch of water body? And as we're breathing in and out, and this is just happening, keep in mind that God is as easy as breathing. Hip-hop is as easy as breathing. MCing is as easy as breathing. B-boying, B-girling, as easy as breathing. Graffiti art, as easy as breathing. The promised land, as easy as breathing. Self-creation, as easy as breathing. Life, as easy as breathing. It's the system that got everybody confused and think it's hard. Because everybody got to go on a quest to find God. And that's true. This is the ultimate quest to find God, being here in earth. But they got it here, this. But then you can come and just say, wait a minute. I'm a living, sovereign being. And I breathe the breath of God within and out, and my water body, my DNA, is coded with my very name. I was listening to a doctor, a medical doctor, talk about the DNA a couple months ago. And she was saying how our DNA is the very book of life itself, where God has written the Word of God on the book of life. And I had this profound moment of realize, like, wow, our very name is written in our DNA. Like, you have a name that even our mouth could only pronounce a little bit of, but you have a name that God has spoken into your water body, into your very DNA, encoded within you, as unique as your fingerprint. You have a name. I have a name. We each have a name written into us by God in our DNA, in our book of life. There should be such a high reverence for God's book of life and the water body that God created us and the breath that God is giving us as a gift to experience this time and this space, and to experience this time and space here in earth. And how fickle people just throw it away. And I've done it too. How much of my own life have I wasted away? And it's an experience and all of that, but for real, what more could it actually be? What more are we actually capable of? I don't know what I'm not capable of. We haven't even been given a chance as a people. We're raised in the system that we just got they give you the social security number, stamp it on your birth certificate, take your fingerprints, take your footprints, put you in a database, send you to their colonized school to be domesticated, given your religion, hand-fed, spoon-fed the media, constant state of fear, constant state of mind control, always in competition with your neighbor, always in competition with one another, running a race. Think about that for a quick moment. They say, oh, the black race, the white race, the Asian race, this race and that race. And look at how devious that language is. You say the race, well, race automatically connotates competition. So when we say, oh, I'm of this race or that race, let's just at least acknowledge that the colonizer put that word there for a reason. To keep the so-called races racing against each other, in competition with one another. When God commanded us and created us to be in cooperation with one another. It's the devil creating the race and the competition. It's God creating the grace and the cooperation. If God is the presence of breath, then what's the devil? The lack of breath? The lack of consciousness? The lack of awareness? The lack of knowing? The lack of insight? The lack of love? The lack of peace? Have we all not been there at some time in our life? Maybe we're there now. Whatever it is, I'll tell you this, my nobility, I'll tell you this. You are the breath of life. I am the breath of life. So God is breathing in us and out us and moving us and floating us, because that breath is like we start floating and moving around, and then God can move us where we need to go. We become lighter with the breath of life. And all that tension that I was just speaking about from the world, we supersede that. We vibrate faster. We vibrate more harmonious. We vibrate at a supreme vibrational frequency. And we don't let their fear affect our decisions. We don't let their doubt and disbelief in their world affect our decisions. Yes, we are aware of it. Yes, we know it. And yes, we will be making decisions based on the movement of the world. But those decisions don't come because of the world. They come because of God breathing through us, because of God's voice, because of God's will, plan, and purpose for our lives. Let's take a moment And, oh, wow, I've got a stack of books over here. Oh, man. I'm already deep in the message, and I've got a stack of books over here. Yeah. I want to return to the spirit talk, but I do want to get to the knowledge and the education of this as well, the scholarship of what this is, because I'm talking from experience. I'm using the words and their definitions, but let's see how we can arrive at certain ways of defining ourselves or redefining ourselves or just having a deeper understanding of an experience that we're already experiencing. Because we're already experiencing the breath, so let's just have a deeper understanding of the breath. Let's start with this. This is wonderful. This is wonderful. I want to start with this. It's called I Become Part of It. Let's do this. I'm going to read the story of creation from I Become Part of It. But let's take 3 deep breaths right now. Should have done this earlier, but I got so excited. My breath got excited. I started bouncing around, started feeling the breath. So just take a moment and just kind of loosen yourself up, just loosen. Just loosen. Let go of the tension. Okay? Now, I'm going to do it like this, right? Those who've seen these breaths before, we in breath and then we out breath. And what we're going to do is we're going to breathe in through the nose and we're going to breathe out through the mouth. And on the third one, when we release it, we're going to give it a good stretch and just let out all that tension. So here we go. Let's breathe in once. Breathe in through the nose. Oh, please, I'm sorry, before we do this, let's breathe in through the nose and think of the Dan Diem, this palace of incorruptible breath. You can kind of feel the area if you put your left thumb over your belly button and then put your right hand over that and just kind of like this and just cup that over your navel there. And then just go 2 inches down from your belly button and 2 inches back. And that's the palace of incorruptible breath, the Dan Diem. I'll have to come up with a hip hop name for it sometime because this is an experience I'm having. And, it's wonderful. So we're going to breathe into that space. And then when we breathe out, we're going to breathe all that air out of that space too. So breathe in through the nose, 1. Hold it for a second. Now breathe out through the mouth. Breath number 2, breathe in through the nose. Hold it for a second. Breathe out through the mouth. On this one, just let it all out when we let this breath out. Breathe in through the nose. And out through the mouth, and give it a good stretch. Give it a little laughter, shake it off, get the blood moving around. Feel the chest, feel the rhythm of the body moving, feel the blood moving different, feel the lightness of the head, feel the smile on your face, feel the warmth in your heart. Know that this is like what we are literally created to be, is warm heart, filling our oxygen, filling our space, creating goodness, creating truth, creating beauty, creating art, creating perfection, That's what we're supposed to be doing with this breath of life. And that's what we get into. So this is called I Become Part of It. And what this is it's called Sacred Dimensions in Native American Life. Sacred Dimensions in Native American Life. I Become Part of It. This book, it's all just stories directly from, the old stories that the elders had shared with this author, or these authors, these editors, D.M. Dooling and Paul Jordan Smith. They edited these notes, they collected these notes and these stories from going to the source itself. And so I really love it because it's very abstract. Like a lot of the stories in here are abstract. But it opens up with, I'll put this up here on the screen, so you can read this. It opens up with the Western Abunaki story of creation here. And I've read this before. I think I read this before. I think I read it a couple times when we used to do a message from the Minista in my car. If you go that far back, shout out to you. I used to do a message from the Minista. I'd just go out in my car and talk. And I read this one or two times, I believe. But this is just such a beautiful, to me, this is just very heartfelt way of seeing our creation. Long ago, when Tabaldak finished making the world, that great being still had some of the dust of creation on his hands. So, just as one does after finishing planting, Tabaldak began to brush that dirt from his hands. That dirt, the dust from the making of all that came to be as Tabaldak, the owner, creator, thought of it and made it. That dust sprinkled like rain onto the earth. There, where it fell, the earth began to move. It moved as with breath. The shape of a head and then a torso formed in the loose red earth. The shapes of arms and hands, of waist and hips formed. Then the shape sat up. It opened its mouth. It spoke words of greeting. These were the first words heard on the new earth. But the language was the language of the earth, which shaped itself into a being. Tabaldak understood those words. Tell me your name, the owner-creator said. I am Adzihozo, the being said. I am the one who gathers himself. Nada, said Adzihozo. It is you who are wonderful. You sprinkled the earth with the dust of creation. Then Adzihozo looked about wide-eyed, and Tabaldak also looked in the same way, and all of creation was around them. All of creation was around them. All of creation. The creator and the creator of all of creation is around us. Next time you're later on tonight or later on today or whenever, or pause the video now or whatever it is, think of that story during your meditation, or take a moment to not just think about that story, because that story is you. You are Odzihozo waking up to the breath of Tabaldak right breathing through you, the breath of Creator being breathed through you right now. And they both looked around through one another, wide-eyed. And all of creation was before them. Not him, them. Creator and created. The Creator and you are looking out of the... Wow. Because I was going to say, we, right now, wherever we are, it's you and the Creator looking at Zin, looking at this camera, which is Zin and the Creator looking at this camera. You see it? Like, God is looking through your eyes too. And there is a distinct experience that God sprinkled the dust of creation as one does. If you've ever planted a plant, you know what it is. You get your hands dirty and the dust falls back to the earth. As rain, it says, as water. The dust of the earth mixed with water. The water body hits the earth. The Creator breathes the breath of life into the dust of creation, the stardust of creation. And man and woman we are given form in that space. And that breath, this is the same story of Adam and Eve. Well, different with Eve because that's just Adam right there. They didn't even get to Eve yet. They were still one being. We ain't going to get into that yet. Because all of us, whether you're man or woman watching this, are that Odihozo. You're that being, that created being who's been given the breath of life. And you are the stardust of creation. The star in the jar, the light of your world, the light of your water, the spark of life, the breath of life. And God is seeing and experiencing this life through you, as you, and you are experiencing it through God as God. There should be a holy reverence there. There should be an impeccable reverence there for this experience and gratitude. While the world's running around, is there even a God? You're experiencing God. I always laugh when it's like, science says that chi could be real. I saw an article a couple years ago. Scientists discovered that chi, chi, like Tai Chi, the energy of life, could be real. You know how stupid that sounds? Do you know how ignorant that is? Ignorant for anybody to claim that they have discovered if chi exists or not. When people for thousands of years have been using chi, cultivating chi, and know that chi exists. Have you ever seen a B-boy or a B-girl when they're up bouncing around in the air and flipping around? That's chi. That's pure, solid chi. Like they just doing things that you would only see in a movie. We're just awe-inspiring, like, oh! The great ones. I mean, like, wow. So now if science is going to come along and try and say that God exists, like they're the authority of God exists or not, when we're walking around experiencing God, we're walking around experiencing chi, we're walking around experiencing breath and creation and the water and our eyeballs and our heart and our chakras and our love and our fears and our doubts and our victories and our so-called defeats and all of that, like our life itself, and then they're the experts on what our experience is? No, that's what hip-hop is about. We are the experience. We don't walk around in subjective reality. We walk around and we don't walk around in objective reality. We walk around in subjective reality. I'm the subject of life itself, of my life. If I know one thing, I know my life. If I'm intimate with one thing, I'm intimate with my life. If I'm an expert on one thing, I'm an expert on my life. And nobody can tell me about my life. But people do. And people help, and I'm so grateful for that. My life just happens to be fresh. I got dope people who say dope things to me that help me become a better me. But that's because I've surrendered to God, and God's had to set me straight and put me back on the straight and narrow and change my thinking and change my thoughts. I didn't have time to put it into the notes tonight, but I was just watching one where a woman is showing how thoughts in our brain create a tree. So certain narrow pathways create a tree in the brain. And this tree is where we'll keep creating those thoughts. And so people with addictive behavior or addictive thinking or anger or whatever it is, keep going to those thoughts. And so it takes those thoughts a certain amount of time and years to develop, but it only takes like 20 days for them to completely dissolve with a new thought and a new affirmation, a more healthy tree growing. So while we're breathing, what are we thinking about? What are we thinking about while we're breathing? Are you thinking, I'm worthless, I ain't nobody, I ain't shit, I'll never be able to do that, I couldn't possibly, angry all the time? Is that the thoughts that you're in? If you are, be honest with yourself and start growing out of them. I had to be honest with myself. Like when I really started getting into my thinking, I was like, yo, I got to change my thinking here. I've got to think about things different. Those things that hold you back in life, those things that cause you to doubt yourself. Well, let's just take that old tree branch and just let it wither and die, and then let the new branch, the new vine, the true vine of confidence, of faith, of hope, of joy, let that be born in the brain, in the mind, creating that tree, creating that life. As we're breathing in, what are we thinking about? Because that's what the thought is going to do. The thought is going to hit the water body and then start going through the water body, and it's going to channel itself up into those energetic neurological pathways and give them more life. And it's interesting because even that energy given life is given into thoughts that are bringing more death and sickness, hatred, ignorance, and poverty. So you got to step away. This is intelligent movement. This is where the in-breath, being hip, being intelligence, being knowing, this is where you want to be. This is where we should be. This is where we are. We're going to be breathing in intelligent thoughts. We're going to be breathing in intelligent affirmations. They don't got to be the most ridiculous affirmation trying to create for yourself the most ridiculous, overabundant life. You know? What about peace? What about love? What about joy? What about health, love, awareness, and wealth? And just start there. Just start there. The H law. Health, love, awareness, and wealth. Let me just breathe in the intelligence of health. And just breathe out the intelligence of health. Now let me just breathe in the intelligence of love. Now let me just breathe out the intelligence of love. Let me just breathe in the intelligence of awareness and breathe out and move in the intelligence of awareness. And let me breathe in the intelligence of wealth, and let me breathe out the intelligence and movement of wealth. Let me hip, hop, health, love, awareness, and wealth in my life. And let those be, let that be what grows in the neural pathway. So then when you breathe the breath of life in, and that breath of life has an energetic charge, that chi, the breath, hits that neurological pathway, and it's enhanced. It springs forward. It's life. It's knowing, and it's perfection. It's crystalline structure. And I'm telling you, this is just physics and metaphysics, and this is what we know. And this is completely attainable without having to climb up to the highest mountain and sail the longest sea. Maybe do that. I love traveling. Go for it. But this spirituality is found right where you're at in the inner city, right where you're at in the city. Like with the noise and the pollution and all this other, and the poverty and all this sickness going on and all this craziness going on, God puts you there for a reason. And you'll know that reason, you'll know that purpose when you tune into your breath. Why? Because you got to know who we are. We're the breath of life itself. This body is just this water body is just what the breath is inhabiting right now. And it's coming from in here, the Dandiyam. Did you feel it when you were breathing in that exercise? The palace of incorruptible breath. The palace of incorruptible breath. I'll put a link below, 2 links below. Oh, Wim Hof. This is the man right here, Wim Hof. Big up to my hermano Eddie out there. Peace and much love, my brother. Yo, Wim Hof. He already knows. He turned me on to Wim Hof a couple weeks ago. Put a link below, 2 links below. One will be a story, just, a 30, 40-minute little mini documentary on Wim Hof. And the next one will be an 11-minute breathing technique from Wim Hof. I suggest you practice that breathing technique that he does on there. It's great. It's a guided meditation. It's only 10, 11 minutes long. And when you go in, whatever you felt like, when you leave that breath, when you finish the exercise after 11 minutes, you'll be completely transformed. You will feel completely different. You will just feel better. You will just feel completely better. Because of the power of breath, because of the power of breathing, because of just putting oxygen into the brain and into the blood and into the bones and into the stomach and into the lungs and all over. That's the breath of life. That's the longevity. That's the bread of life. Breath, bread, the bread, the breath, bread, the. Like, wow, how close is that? Let's put the definitions of hip and hop up here on the screen real quick. Now here we are. This is just in the first overstanding hip hop. And these are the 3 natures of hip hop here. I'm going to read both definitions of them. I got another part from another section. But just as a reminder and also as a refresher, hip hop, capital H, lowercase I, lowercase p, lowercase h, lowercase o, lowercase p. Hip-hop as one word is the name of our creative force, okay? This is important because that's spirit, that's soul, that's consciousness. Hip-hop is the name of our creative force in the world. It is our lifestyle and collective consciousness. Breath is consciousness. Life right here. It is our lifestyle, the breath of life, okay? Second definition of hip-hop, second nature of hip-hop. Capital H, lowercase I, lowercase p, space, capital H, lowercase o, lowercase p, is the name of our culture and artistic elements. The reason that this is important to understand is because when we tune into our breath, we have to express. The breath is, you will have to express once you get the breath. When you have a knowing, you're going to want to express it. When you feel joy within, you're going to want to express it to others, to help spread that joy, to help spread that knowledge, to help spread that love, to help spread that truth, to help spread that hip-hop. You feel me? So this is all of this has to do with the same phenomenon that's happening, which is you. Third nature of hip-hop, lowercase h, lowercase I, lowercase p, dash, lowercase h, lowercase o, lowercase p, is rap music product and its mainstream activities. If you're going to be competing in any kind of arena of the world, where you're going to be making a product, you're going to want to have your breath under control because people are going to want to test you. People are going to want to take you out. People are going to want to steal from you. People are going to want to rob you and manipulate you. And when you have your breath under control, when you can breathe in any situation and see clearly in any situation, they will not be able to do those things to you. Let's look at the second batch of definitions in the Gospel of Hip-Hop as well. This is once again in the first overstanding. Hip-hop. The real hip-hop is the first overstanding. Okay, hip-hop once again is consciousness. Capital H, lowercase I, lowercase p, lowercase h, lowercase o, lowercase p is our unique spirit right there. I'll show you why that's important in a minute. You already know why it's important. You don't even need to be shown, but we'll go deeper into that in a minute. Our unique spirit, our unique collective consciousness, the creative force. See, that's the important part behind hip-hop's elements. Hip-hop is the name of our lifestyle and collective consciousness. Second nature of hip-hop, capital H, lowercase I, lowercase p, space, capital H, lowercase o, lowercase p. The creation and development of breaking, MCing, graffiti art, DJing, beatboxing, street fashion, street language, street knowledge, and street entrepreneurialism. It is what we call ourselves and our activity in the world. Hip-hop is the name of our culture. And the third nature of hip-hop, lowercase h, lowercase I, lowercase p, dash, lowercase h, lowercase o, lowercase p, equals rap music product and those things and events associated with rap music entertainment. Hip-hop is a music genre. And look at that, rap music entertainment, like just that alone, you have to have breath control to rap, okay? Just know that. Breath control, breath control, breath control, Sally. Okay? You know what, let's do it. Hip-hop culture. Notice the spelling. Notice both spellings. Right there. Hip-hop culture is the name of our unique community of consciousness. Hip-hop is the name of our collective consciousness. And hip-hop's culture is the manifested character, patterns, belief, and arts of our real collective consciousness as hip-hoppers. We are a very real community of specialized people. All right. So what we're seeing there, okay, hip-hop is consciousness, breath. We're breathing in our consciousness. Hip-hop is the in and the out breath, in, out. So we have the consciousness, as one word, hip-hop is consciousness. That's our unique spirit. That's our collective consciousness there. And then when we express it through the 9 elements, then we get to hip-hop as culture, the cultural spelling, the 9 elements spelling. This is the actual expression of hip-hop itself. So we have the idea, we have the enlightenment, we have the inspiration, we have the God. We have God enters into us and then wants to express out through us through the movement, through the hop. And it's the hip and the hop is always together. So it's one. Even if there's a space between the two, they still come together as a pair. Hip and a hop. It's intelligent movement. You're not, the intelligence, makes no sense without movement. And there is really no movement without actual intelligence. Now we see a lot of unintelligent movement out in the world, but there is even an intelligence, like the program of the media. There's an intelligence that goes into that. They know what they're going to do and say to mass manipulate and mind control people. So people are moving to that. I don't call it hip hop though, because it ain't from God. God's allowing it to happen though. But for those of us who are like getting rid of the colonized mind and the colonized way of thinking, you need to know that they're still colonizing people's thinking. Like the liberal media and even the conservative media is still colonizers. They're both colonizers. The Republican and Democrat are both colonizers. If you vote, you support colonizers. If you support any of them, you support colonizers. They are the colonizer. And their ideas and their thoughts and their laws are trying to colonize your mind and your children's mind. And hip-hop is here to say no more colonization. We do not need you. We never did. We don't want you. We don't need you. Goodbye. We can create our own. We are creating our own, and God is creating us through us, for us. Do you know God cares about you and loves you very deeply? Like God desperately loves you. They do not love you. They loathe you. That's why they do what they do. Why not tune into our nature of God and our breath and our hip and our hop? Because what happens? What happens when the breath of God enters into us? Oh, I got to say something. I got to paint something. I got to mean something. I got a book to write. I got a divine inspiration coming through me. And I owe it to my community to hear it. Because your purpose isn't just your purpose. Your purpose is God's purpose. And when we're a collective consciousness like hip-hop is, then your purpose is hip-hop's purpose. Therefore, your purpose is important to me. It's important to me that you live your purpose. I need you to live your purpose. You need me to live my purpose. We need each other to live our purposes out. It's like the finger needs the other finger, needs the hand, needs the blood, the whole body needs each other to move and operate. And move. We got the hip as a community. We don't have the hop yet. We got a little bit. But as the community, as a collective consciousness, we're getting the knowledge. Wow, and it comes first. The hip comes first, okay? The knowledge has come in. Oh, we are a culture. Oh, we are a divinely inspired culture. Now more of you are waking up to that. This has been, this has been a journey for me back in 2004, really just diving head first into this. But even before that, having the hip and the knowing, the hop didn't come to 2004. And it's still, and new hip and new hop is always coming and moving. It's the in and out breath is always happening, right? But as more and more of us are starting to awaken to that, they're like, oh, wait a minute, we could like literally start something new. And God is literally starting something new through us. Not even that we could, but God is. But what can we actually do once you free your mind? Right? Like what can God do with a free mind and not a colonized mind, not an enslaved mind? Remember that the breath of life enters in and it goes up into that tree of life that says health, love, awareness, and wealth, peace and prosperity, joy, truth, freedom. When the breath of life enters into that, all through the body, then it's reverberating that, and this starts reverberating back, and it starts changing. And everything will start changing for the greater good, for God. Let's go to our definitions. I'm going to pop them up here on the screen, okay? Breath. The air inhaled and exhaled in respiration. Wow, these corny wow, look at them. The air inhaled and exhaled in respiration. See how the colonizer do it? They just don't even want to tell you it's God right off the bat. They can't. They can't do that. They will eventually. The air inhaled and exhaled in respiration. Boy, you talk about that's blasphemy. The act, definition number 2, the act or process of breathing, respiration. Inspiration, spirit is right there, spirat, right there. The ion, the re-spirit ion, the respiration, the spirit, and the ion, all right there. The ion is the movement. That's God's ions. That's the Zion. That's the ion. That's ionic movement. Re-spirit ion. So putting the spirit into the ion. Respiration. Breath, definition number 3, the capacity to breathe, especially in a natural and unlabored manner. Okay, so they're getting there to like what we were talking about earlier with the kids. When we're a kid, we breathe perfectly. Well, most kids do. Definition number 4. Now, how come it took this long to get to this? Spirit or vitality, life. Spirit or vitality, life. Definition number 4. How is that not definition number 1? Spirit or vitality, life, breath. The literal definition of breath, spirit or vitality, life. No, they put definition number 1, the air inhaled and exhaled in respiration. See how they do ya? See how they do ya? But we see right through ya. I'm coming to ya with the breath of life. Definition number 1, it should be spirit or vitality, life. And that's it right there. That part right there is where we go to spirit and soul and life and God and consciousness. Our hip and our hop. Vitality actually denotes movement. Definition number 5, a single respiration, a deep breath. Exhaled air is evidenced by vapor, odor, or heat. Vapor is water. Definition number 6 is saying exhaled air is evidenced by vapor, odor, or heat. The odor is carried on the water. The heat is the heated water. You feel the heat water molecules in the air. When you breathe out, it's warm breath. Definition number 7, a momentary pause or rest. Let's catch our breath. That's always a nice one, a momentary pause or rest. Definition number 8a, a momentary stirring of air. Wow. See, that's beautiful right there. Another great definition. That's spirit. When you're just out and it's the so-called wind blows, that's actually the breath of God. When the wind blows or the breeze blows, you'll know that's the breath of God. Right here by definition number 8a, a momentary stirring of the air. Definition number 8b, a slight gust of fragrant air. Oh man, I'll tell you, if you ever got some star jasmine in bloom and you get a nice spring breeze, oh, that's the best smell ever. Breath, definition number 9, a trace or suggestion. Definition number 10, a softly spoken sound, a whisper. That's dope. Definition 11, linguistics, exhalation of air without vibration of the vocal cords, as in the articulation of P, P, and S, idioms in one or the same breath, at or almost at the same time, out of breath, breathing with difficulty as form as exertion, gasping under in the muted voice or whisper, Middle English, breathe, from Old English, brath, see, gehere in appendix. Wow, it doesn't even. All right. So we see that right there. Just go back up and you can look here at number 4. Spirit or vitality, life. Okay? That vapor, that water, all of that is so important. But the breath of life, and they admit it right here. The colonizer even admits that breath is the spirit or vitality, life. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to, I looked at the American Heritage Dictionary, and I never liked their definition of spirit. I know we read it before here once, and I just didn't feel like going back and looking at that because it just doesn't make any sense, their definition of spirit. So what I wanted to do was go to Spirit in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, from the Charles Fillmore Reference Library. I'll put that up here just so you can see the book on the screen here, the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. And we'll go to spirit. You see the meta dot, that just means this is the metaphysical definition of spirit. Now remember, they just said that breath is spirit. So we go to spirit. So what is breath? Think about breath when we talk about spirit. A name for God. Spirit and mind are synonymous. Therefore, we know God's spirit as mind, the one mind or intelligence of the universe. See soul. So think about this. Our breath is the name of God. Spirit and mind are synonymous. Therefore, we know God's spirit as mind, the one mind or intelligence. What are we breathing in? What is our hip? We're breathing in that spirit of intelligence of the universe. Now it says, what does it say right here? See soul. Now this is where it gets deep. Wow, does it get deep. Saw that little tiny definition for spirit. Then it says see soul. Now here's where the reading is going to get a little deep, my brothers and sisters, and my nobility out there. So just tune into your breath as I read this. I may give a little commentary here and there, but this is masterfully written, and I feel that as I read this, that there will be a deeper understanding received by just taking a moment and just tuning into your breath and just feeling these words as they flow as I read the definition of soul, the metaphysical definition of soul. Soul. The scriptures give spirit, soul, and body as constituting all of man. Spirit is I am, the same in character as divine mind or God. Soul is man's consciousness, that which he has apprehended or developed out of spirit. Also, the impressions that he has received from the outer world. Soul is both conscious and subconscious. Body is the form of expression of both spirit and soul. In its invisible forces, it expresses spirit, and in its seeming materiality, it pictures the limitations of soul. When man puts out of consciousness all limitations and realizes the perfection of spirit, his body will be perfect. In other words, the salvation of the soul results in the redemption or spiritualization of the body. The ether, the astral, and the soul are virtually one. It is this realm of the soul that ideas first take form. The soul is not the realm of God ideas, but is the second emanation in the creative law. Now we're talking about soul here, my nobility. This is the garden of Genesis 2:8, in which are all possibilities. But the supreme being lies deeper than soul. The mind must grasp ideas in their absolute, unrelated, and unlimited degree before God can be comprehended. Man is eternally one with the Father in his own divine essence as the divine will. Let me read that again. Man is eternally one with the Father in his divine essence as the divine will. But when that will is sent forth to carry out the ideas of the Father, wisdom, a condition is set up, a state of consciousness called the soul, and its outer court called the body. The realm of things made, or consciousness of condition, is termed the soul. The body is the outer court of the soul, and an exact representative in form of the ideals that are revolving in the inner realms of its domain. The planet on which we live is a type of every man's soul. The solid part represents the body, the electrical currents that permeate it from center to circumference and far beyond represent the passions and emotions of man. The clouds are a fit symbol of human thoughts that have been thrown out by the discords of unwise thinking. All these are things and undergoing constant change. They appear to progress from lower to higher forms. Men have observed this progression and called it evolution. This perpetual change is symbolic of man's consciousness, which is going through just such an evolutionary process as is observed in the planet. My nobility, our consciousness is evolving. Are you hip to your hop? The ego is building, and these states and conditions are the evidence of its handiwork. The difference between soul and spirit, also the difference between the Spirit of God and the indwelling Christ, is as follows. The soul touches both the inner realm of spirit, from which it receives direct inspiration, and the external world, from which it receives impressions. But as man brings into expression the original purity of the divine consciousness, his soul is purified and established in its primitive innocence. The Spirit is the divine center in man and is always in the absolute. It does not become involved in effects, but stands as the creative cause of the absolute good. The indwelling Christ is the Son of God, or spiritual nucleus within each individual, about which all of our thoughts must harmonize before we can bring into expression the divine consciousness. The Spirit of God is the divine consciousness carrying out the Christ ideas. My nobility, you are the very breath of God, the intelligence of God, the spark within, the light within, the Christ within. Singing forward, speaking forward, vibrating forward, thinking forward, moving forward, using your hands, your body. Got my soul singing, now sing, sing, sing along, sing. Check out the song, from the Black Crowes, Soul Singing. Yo, got my soul singing. God is singing to our soul, and we're singing, and it's vibrating out of our soul, out of our being. What are we singing? What are you thinking? What are you speaking? What are you saying, my nobility? Are you regurgitating the vomit of the world? Or are you speaking the holy word of God? Because it seems to just be a matter of choice. Yeah, you make the choice and there will be experiences to be experienced. Like God starts working and vibrating in you, God's going to clear out those things that hold you back. God's going to remove those things out of your life that don't serve God. Be ready for that. Be ready for that. The younger you start doing this, the better it will be. You're still going to have experiences. You're still going to go through trials and tribulations. But you start here at 18, 19, and 20 with this knowledge, by the time you're 48, you'll have built the city. If you don't fall for the temptations of the world, because I'll tell you this, the more you learn in spirit, the higher the level, the greater the devil. The greater the fear, the greater these things. And you'll be well equipped to beat them all off and know that you reign supreme over any low-level attack. You just vibrate faster than it. But you will notice that as you get older and you get wiser and you get more experience, that those things that would have crushed you 10 years ago come at you now and you're able to move them off. But then something new comes along that would have killed you 10 years ago, but now you can move it out of the way now. But you got to learn. You got to get the muscles. You got to put the strength in. You got to... It's not a place you go to. Heaven isn't a place we go to. It's a place we grow to. And we're growing through our breath, the indwelling breath, the Spirit. And then the Spirit inhabits the soul, and then the soul creates the body, and then we speak forward. And it's intelligent movement. The Spirit is intelligence and movement. And the breath of God is intelligent movement. God is hip-hop. Do you see it? There is nothing going on daily in all of creation that is not some form of intelligent movement. The very fact that this is all held together and hasn't combusted and just disappeared is evidence, empirical evidence of intelligent movement everywhere. And you breathing is empirical evidence of intelligent movement of God in your life. Your very breath is the only proof you need for the existence of God. End of story. That's why they buried the definition of breath. Like number 4 was spirit. Simply spirit. That should be number 1, and that should have just been gone, should have been the whole book. Write a whole book about this. The breath of God is spirit indwelling within us. Whoop, whoop, and they know it, and they're telling us. Now what are we going to do with it? Well, we're going to express it. So what is the work to do this week for you? What is it you want to go forward and do this week with this message from the minister? Well, tune into your breath. Take the Wim Hof technique. Notice that as you get more of that Wim Hof breath in you, you tune into that. Notice the charge that you have, and then plan on doing a task. Do the Wim Hof breath and plan on doing a task. That task could be meditation. That task could be studying. That task could be running. That task could be lifting weights. That task could be writing rhymes. That task could be recording a track. That task could be writing a book, whatever that task is. Say to yourself, I'm going to do this task, so I'm going to give it 11 minutes to prepare myself for this task. I'm going to do these Wim Hof breath for 11 minutes, and I'm going to go do that task. And then notice the difference of the task. Notice how empowered you are and how much clearer you are. And get that phone. I got to tell you, everybody, the syncopation of the phone, of always clicking and checking and open apps and moving and clicking and back and forth, is creating neurological pathways that are governing our thinking. And I've noticed it. I'm taking my phone. So if I don't respond to you right away, know that I'm taking my phone now. I'm just putting it far away from me so I don't even reach for it to look at it. I'll go and consciously look for it. I'll have a reason to go or something I need to do with it. But I'm not sitting there checking for messages all the time. I found myself slipping back into that habit. And I got to break this habit. Because then when I'm meditating, I'm checking for other things instead of staying on a stream of consciousness, staying focused. Focus is so important. Because focus, when we're breathing, when we're in our breath, we're more focused. And when we're more focused, we're more intelligent. Oxygen in the brain, in their world, makes you more intelligent. Why else would all this stuff be wanting to cut people's oxygen down? Why else would they be pumping pumping the environment with all these toxins and all this poison out in the air? Because they know what it does. Why would they be dropping those chemtrails? Because they know what it does to man's breath. Breath is consciousness. Can you imagine like what we used to do before the pollution? Like how fast. I've heard stories of people running 400 miles. Like this Native American brother told me one time, he's like, our ancestors. He said, your ancestors were here too. I said, word. And he said, our ancestors used to run 400 miles. We eat a little magic mushroom, drink some shit, and then run for 400 miles nonstop. But when you realize the time and space and the reality to manipulate it and move it is not what we've been conditioned and indoctrinated to believe. We can only see what we know. But when you go there, if you've ever eaten a magic mushroom, and you can see how time and space warp and how you can go through warp zones, it is not inconceivable of a group of dudes running and time warping 400 miles away. What do you need a car for if you can run for 400 miles and the oxygen in the air is so rich and the body's so empowered that we were just big, giant beings? Why do you think all that old architecture has doors that are 12 feet high? That makes no sense for a 6 foot and under person to make a door 12 feet high. It makes no sense. And then all over the place? No, because our ancestors, what we truly are, used to have bigger, more powerful, stronger bodies. Before these bodies, we got these versions of it that are domesticated. Like a house cat compared to a lion. Like for real. A house cat compared to a lion. A chihuahua compared to a timber wolf. Don't think for a moment that this body that we inhabit is the original body of our ancestors. You know, the mother holding the child, that's a grown man she's holding. A teacher pointed this out many years ago. The Madonna and child, I'll put that one up there. Notice how big the Madonna is, the mother. And notice that boy that she's holding in her lap is the size of a grown man. And look at the size difference there. That's our ancestors. That's in our genes too, by the way. We start cleaning this other frequency and stuff out, our kids are going to start getting bigger and stronger and more powerful and more intelligent and closer to God. That's what this truth will bring, longer life. That's what the metaphysical Bible was just saying. It brings longer life. Just the knowledge of it, just the breath of God will have you living a longer, more fulfilled life. Are you hip to your hop? Do you know why you move? What is your purpose? Now start expressing that purpose. If you've been watching Message from the Ministers for a while now, you should be expressing yourself in a very healthy way. If you've been paying attention to any of these messages from the Minister and picking it up, you are expressing yourself in a very unique way, a unique soul expression that maybe and probably you're the only one who can express. And you'll get inspiration from other people and other events and get those impressions from the outside world that the metaphysical Bible was talking about. Creating something beautiful, but create something that has meaning. Create something that helps your fellow man and woman out. Sidestep the whole world. They want you to talk about this or that side of the issue. They give an issue and give both sides of the issue, and then they talk about it until they give the next issue. Sidestep out of that. I don't even discuss those issues. And yeah, I'm aware of them. I'm a minister. I know where my people are at. I know what they're interacting with in the world. But those issues, those are not God's issues. God's issues are like, what's happening to my children? Why are you guys creating destruction when you could be creating peace? Why are you creating disharmony when you could be creating harmony? Why are you spending your time giving all your energy to the colonizer when you could be spending your time and giving all your energy to your community? You could be giving all your energy to me. That's what God's saying. I could be giving you everything that I see for you. Not what the church told you, not what any of these rich megachurch pastors are telling you need. What God is saying that you need. Not even your old understanding of what you think you may need, but what God knows that you need. What is this water body? What is this speck of dust? The spark of dust? What does this need? It needs breath to live. It needs life. It needs God. We need God, and God has never abandoned you. And the breath never dies. So even when the breath leaves this body is not abandoned. The breath is still in its wholeness. The water goes back into its coated wholeness with the rest of the water and is reformed and moved. It's always moving and waving, and this whole nature is transitionary. One day this book who knows how long this book will be preserved. As long as I have it, it should be preserved in pretty decent condition. But where does it go after me? I'll pass it on to somebody, pass it on to an organization, have it in my Temple of Hip Hop building, have it in my personal Zin Uru library, whatever that is, this book will live on. But it will change form at one time or another. And even if it looks like this book, 100 years from now, this book, even this ridge will be a different ridge line. Even the weight of the book will have different acids on the page, and certain moisture will have evaporated, and it will smell different. It will literally, because why? Because all these particles are still moving within this book. Everything of this book is still in motion and moving. It's still a wave. I'm still holding this particle and wave called a book. And it's got these wonderful words and this knowledge in it that's important. So it should be preserved, but it will be changing form. It was a form before this. It was some trees and some ink, and now it became this. And that tree was water and earth and a seed at one time. This came from a seed and water. Just like you and me. This is like you and me. This came from a seed and water, so did you. You eat plants. We drink water. We get the sunlight. We get the vitamins. We get the nutrition. We are the wholeness. We are the oneness. And the breath is life. Therefore, be at one with the breath. Be at one with life and the wholeness. And there is no fear here. There's only creation here. There's only God here. The future isn't written. You think the future is written? Yeah, some ideas about the future, some warnings, some prophecies about the future has been written. But not my nobility. Start right in the future now. So let's close. Let's close in that wholeness and close with the oneness. Where did I put it? Here it is. We're going to close with the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. Chapter 39. I'll put it up here on the screen. First, of course, as our tradition here is look at the beautiful calligraphy of the Chinese as it just kind of scrolls down the screen here. Isn't that absolutely beautiful? I look at that handwriting and just I'm always in awe and amazement of that handwriting. Just the intelligence of that handwriting. Chapter 39 of the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. From of old, there are not lacking things that have attained oneness. The sky attained oneness and became clear. The earth attained oneness and became calm. The spirits attained oneness and became charged with mystical powers. The fountains attained oneness and became full. The 10,000 creatures attained oneness and became reproductive. Barons and princes attained oneness and became sovereign rulers of the world. All of them are what they are by virtue of oneness. If the sky were not clear, it would be likely to fall to pieces. If the earth were not calm, it would be likely to burst into bits. If the spirits were not charged with mystical powers, they would be likely to cease from being. If the fountains were not full, they would be likely to dry up. If the 10,000 creatures were not reproductive, they would be likely to come to extinction. If the barons and princes were not the sovereign rulers, they would be likely to stumble and fall. Truly, humility is the root from which greatness springs, and the high must be built upon the foundation of the low. And this is why barons and princes style themselves the helpless one, the little one, and the worthless one. And this line right here, my nobility. Truly, humility is the root from which greatness springs, and the high must be built upon the foundation of the low. I'll tell you something about the teacher, right? The teacher always says this to the temple of hip-hop when he's reading. He's like, look at me as the lowest one. Look at me as the foundation what to be built upon. And look at me in that same way. I'm not like what I'm putting forward is to be built upon. You know, this knowledge that's being spoken forward is to be built upon. And I've seen people be like, yeah, but you're KRS-One, you know, to the teacher. They'll be looking at the teacher like, you're KRS-One. How could you say you're the foundation? Oh, that's just false humility. Like, you're the greatest. And he always looks at him like, what are you talking about? I'm telling you what I am. And that's how you know of his greatness. Because the vision is that he's putting forward is, hey, let's make a foundation so our kids have something to build upon. So the future, not just our kids, the kids that we give birth to, but the children of the future have something to build upon. That's what hip-hop is for. It's not just for you, it's for the future. It's for the children. We got no time to waste, my nobility. And sometimes the rest in God is what we need. If your soul needs rest, give your soul rest. If you need to sleep for a month, sleep for a month. If you need to sleep for 2 weeks, sleep for 2 weeks. If you need to sleep for a day, just sleep for a day. If you're just worn out and tired, sleep and rejuvenate.
Have a plan. Start making a plan. Start drinking more alkaline water. Start drinking more purified water. Start eating healthier. Start exercising more. You already know the answers of what it is. Just study them more. Beware of your thoughts. What are you saying to yourself? Never, never underestimate the power of rest. That rest, a good night's sleep, will put you in tune with your breath like nothing else. And what do people want more than a good night's sleep? You know, you've been awake on the earth all day. You should have a good night's sleep. Nowhere on earth has God ever commanded, thou shalt not have restful sleep. Sleep is for rest. Sleep is for getting in tune with the breath. God's burden is light. Yeah, it feels like a burden because we're letting go of the actual burden of the earth. Not of the earth, of the world. We're letting go of the burden of the colonizer, and all of a sudden we become lighter. And it's uncomfortable, but rest. When it gets uncomfortable, rest. Sleep. Get some sleep. It's important. Get some rest. Take some time for yourself and for your purpose. Put that book together. Put that idea together. Put that song together. Put that, whatever it is that you got to put it together so you feel good about yourself. And then the vision. Allow the vision to come through you. I know this because if you would have met me 14 years ago trying to articulate this, I knew this somewhere deep inside, just like you know deep inside. But I didn't know how to express it all the way. But here it is, 15, 16 years later, and not only is it getting expressed, more and more is coming in every week. Every day I'm getting something new, And so are you. I'm not unique. I'm not special and all that. I am unique and special, but so are you, right? Be unique and special. Don't turn your light down for nobody. Yeah, we teach in Darkament where we go within and we appear invisible to the demons and the world trying to come and get us. But we also go in to rejuvenate, to recharge, so that when we do go out in the world and we do shine our light, we easily dispel those demons because we're not tired. We've rested in the spirit. Body at rest, spirit awake, body at rest. When I'm recording music, it's not work. I feel at rest. I'm hyped up. But it's still restful because it's expression. This right here, like before I do the message from the Minista, I get what am I going to say tonight? I go through this whole entire thing to where I finally get out on the camera. This is rest. I'm saying this, but after I turn off the camera and I plug the chip, plug the little card into the back of my computer, I clean up the room here, I feel such a peace and such an ease because I live my purpose. And that's what purpose does. Purpose gives you good rest, and good rest gets you tuned to breath, and breath will get you tuned back into purpose. It's a cycle. There it is, my nobility. I could talk for hours more about breath, but I know you see what it is. And let's just tune into what it is. You are breathing in God. You are hip hop. And there it is. Hip! Much love to you and your family.